everyone, this is Kenesha from VeryThoughtfulLife.com. Thank you for joining me. So for the month of June, I've decided to share my thoughts and videos just focusing on marriage, love, and relationships. So today I wanted to start by sharing with you guys my thoughts about the purpose of marriage. So I've been married for 18 years, and I will admit that it has been a journey. But one of the things that I've always held on to with getting married was I didn't want to just get married and be married. I was intentional about wanting to be happily married. Now, over over the 18 years, I will say that it didn't always feel happy. It didn't always feel good. But because I entered the marriage with that thought, and I've also my husband entered it with that thought too, that we would work to be happily married. We understood that it would be work, and we also allowed each other the opportunity to voice when we weren't happy. And then being willing to show up to do the work to get either back to the happiness or to just recreate what we think happy need to be. So, like I said, today I wanted to talk about purpose and the purpose of marriage. So when I first got married 18 years ago, I would have thought maybe the purpose of marriage is, to spend my life with the person that I love and to just make this thing work. But over time, I've grown to believe that marriage is not so much about happiness as it is about wholeness. And so what do I mean by that? Life will happen and difficult situations will show up, and especially in a marriage. Now, I am a Christian, and I've come to believe that the purpose of marriage is to make me more Christ-like or more God-like, if some of you guys don't follow God through Christ, but more God-like. And so when I think about what do I consider that is God-like, again, I'm going to reference Christ. I believe that Jesus came and he died and he sacrificed his life for us, but he also taught us forgiveness, and he served. When you study the scriptures, Jesus served his disciples. He didn't just tell them what to do. So over 18 years, and I'll be honest, probably in the last 5 years, well, no, I would say, yeah, over the course of the marriage, I've learned that God was more interested in my holiness and my wholeness, being complete, being more like him, than he was in my happiness. Now, God is a good God, so because I've learned to walk in my wholeness and to grow and to acknowledge that there are some places in my life that I'm weak, when I move towards the wholeness, and love from that place of being whole and not incomplete, or feeling like there's something outside of me that should feel that, being my husband or my job or my children, but because I feel like more of a whole person than I used to feel like a whole person, because of that, I've learned how to be happy. So I think that marriage is intended for us to become whole. And that's not to say that if you're married, you're not a complete person. But what I'm saying is, in the relationship of marriage, it is one of those relationships that requires you to serve, forgive, sacrifice, and learn how not to be selfish in order to do it in a successful way. Now, I know some of you guys that may be watching, like I said, may not be married or are parents, and you think, well, I can do that with my kids. Here's the thing about it. For me, the biggest difference between my spouse and my children, with the type of love and choosing to submit to the idea of serving my husband, to the idea of forgiving my husband over and over again. And that doesn't mean being mistreated, but I'm saying like forgiving him for leaving all the kitchen cabinets open if he goes inside and gets something out of the kitchen. Forgiving him for leaving his clothes on the floor at the end of the night. Just those little things of forgiveness, but doing it over and over again. The reason I think is more about that, and the difference between doing that for your children and doing it for your spouse is, most of us, we connect with our children because they're born through us, and as moms especially, Most of us can't see leaving those little people or separating from them or um, really dismissing them out of our life. However, for spouses, for husbands, and maybe even boyfriends, we are quick that if we're not happy, you don't make me happy, I can do bad by myself, to be willing to leave the relationship, to break the bond. It's not as, I don't know if I want to say secure, but it's not the same type of bond. My relationship with my son is not the same type of relationship I have with my husband, nor should it be. But one of the things I can say for certain is I don't think there's anything Bryson can do that will make me stop loving him, that will make me stop showing up for him, that will make me think that I couldn't fight until he maybe becomes the better person I need him to be. But I'm his mom and I'm supposed to be there, and all of those things will play in my head. But as a wife, sometime, and especially earlier in my relationship, I would stand in the position of I have the right to be happy, or I have the right for you to treat me right, or I have the right for you to respect me and all that. And that's not to say some of that isn't true, but I do recall having those conversations in the early part of my marriage of I can do bad by myself, or I don't have to put up with this kind of thing. Because I think when we get married and we enter a relationship with a spouse, then that somewhere in our human minds, and because we're very selfish people, we think that, well, I can leave this. I can, this, it doesn't have to be this way. I can get out. Well, what I want to encourage you today is, first and foremost, let me say this. If you're in an abusive relationship, physically, mentally, where you are being abused, emotionally abused, do what you need to do. Okay, I am not here to tell anyone to stay in an unhappy marriage. What I am encouraging, however, is whether you're married or single, realize that whatever is happening in your life, especially through relationships, is there to challenge you to become a better person, a more whole person, to move you more towards who God designed you to be. And that may cause you and require you to suffer a little bit, because if you think about it, Jesus suffered. It may cause you to submit, and I know we don't like that word. My goodness, please don't. Kanisha in 2015, where women should not have to submit to a man. Don't you dare sit and tell me to submit. But here's the thing. Two things. One, the Bible tells us as spouses, submit one to another. Two, in all of life, at some point, you are submitting to something or someone. Okay? When you go to work, you submit to the rules of that corporation or that environment. When you are dealing with trying to organize something and you have to deal with another company, you have to submit to the way they're asking you to do it. So submission is not this belittling yourself to do what the other person in the relationship is asking you to do. Submission is realizing that there is a way that this thing is going to work. There is a way that in order for this to work, where there's more than one person involved, that it can't always be my way. So submitting, for me at least, is if my husband, if my boss, if they have a way of doing something, and I don't always have to agree with it, but if it works, I have to be open to it. Okay, and sometimes, whether I agree with it or not, I have to submit to it. That is called life. That is called living amongst other people and not from a selfish place. The biggest killer, I believe, in marriage, and I hear people say, and I've read articles, that communication kills marriage, money kills marriage, lack of intimacy kills marriage. I am convinced that what really destroys a marriage is selfishness. Many of us stand before an altar or a judge or however we decide to get into this relationship, but we stand there with the intent of the I factor. I'm getting married. I want to be happy. I want a big house. I want to make more money. I. And when two people sign up to do anything together, whether it's partnership in business, whether it's a marriage, whether it's parenting, You can have two people who aren't married but parenting. The I factor is going to destroy that situation, quick, fast, and in a hurry, if you don't change your heart and your mindset to that. Marriage is not meant for your happiness, and I'm so sorry to tell some of you guys that. But it's work. It takes work, and that's not to say you should stay in a relationship for the rest of your life unhappy. That's not what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking you to do is, in every situation, in every disappointment, in every fight in the marriage, in every frustration, look for opportunity for you to grow. Look for an opportunity of, okay, Lord, this keeps happening. I am the common factor. It keeps happening to me. It keeps happening before me. It keeps happening in front of me. It keeps happening maybe because of me. What is it that I can do to either make this situation better, see it differently? Where can I serve? Where can I forgive? Where can I sacrifice? What can I really do to make this better? Now, I know for a lot of women, because a lot of times I think it's women that's listening to my videos, but just it seems like in general that the society, we often talk to women and we hold women to a standard to, it seems like, always give up their thoughts or their needs for the betterment of the relationship or for a man. I'm not asking you to surrender who you are. What I'm asking you to consider is this thing working for me? Is my standing in my armor of I am a woman and I can't, you're not going to mistreat me, and this whole thing, we're equal, and if all of that is working for you and you have a happy marriage or a happy relationship or a happy life, I say go forward, do it. But what I'm offering is, if it's not working for you, consider something else. Let's not make it all about being so self-centered, and nothing about being loving, supportive, forgiving, responsible. There's nothing in that that makes you less of a woman. There's nothing in that that takes away from you being a woman. Sometimes I feel like what I see is, and I can be guilty of this too, we will fight for the point at our own detriment. Like, we'll fight to win the point or win the argument or stand our ground to our own detriment. That's nonsense to me. Like, and maybe it's getting older, but I don't have to win the argument or the fight. I am just in it to know, like, does it create love? Does it create peace? Does it create joy? And perhaps my way doesn't work all the time. And perhaps there is a better way of doing it. Because after all, I have signed up and teamed to do life with another individual. I've decided that I wanted to spend the rest of my life being connected to this man. So if I did that, if I signed up for it, why wouldn't I think that he'd have some good ideas? Why wouldn't I believe that possibly there's another way that's different from my way that could still work? I have to open my heart to that. Why bother to get married if I'm going to show up with this idea that it can only be done right if I do it, that it can only be done my way, that it shouldn't cost me anything? That is the essence of any relationship. If you believe, and I do, that Jesus came and died to have a relationship so that we can have a relationship with the Father in heaven, it cost him his life. Like, so where does this notion come from? I hear people say, well, love shouldn't hurt. Love shouldn't be abusive. Like, there's a difference between love shouldn't hurt and love shouldn't be abusive. What we have to understand is, when you connect your heart and open your heart for someone to love someone and for someone to come into that space, you're opening your heart to the possibility that there may be some hurt attached to it. Whether they leave, whether they die, whether they disappoint you, there is sometimes going to be some hurt attached to love. No, it should not be the entire span of the relationship, this hurt. But what love is, love sometimes does require discomfort and suffering. It does not, I believe, require abuse. And you got to know the difference. So all of this to say, because what I offered when I said I would do this is that I would try to keep these videos short. All of this to say is, the purpose of marriage. Don't believe it's to make you happy. Totally believe it's to make us holy and wholeness. When I think of the word holy, I think it means to be whole, to be complete. It makes me completely me. It makes me completely me to be able to be willing to forgive my husband over and over again for the little things. And even sometimes I had to forgive for the big things. That's not to say I'm standing up to be hurt over and over again. It's just to say there's no need to hold a grudge. There's no need to hold in my heart that he owes me something. It's to forgive and move forward in a better and healthier way. Is to serve sometime as well as to understand that there will be some times that he will serve me. It's to submit sometime because there will be times that he will have to submit to me, not to be to lower himself to me or me to lower myself to him. It just means that sometimes we're going to have a difference on the way we're going to do things. And somebody have to stand up and be bold enough, smart enough, and responsible enough to say, you know what? I'm not going to keep fighting about this. It's a possibility that this way will work. And sometimes, ladies, and I know for some of you guys this is really hard, sometimes you have to watch it not work so that he'll have the opportunity to try to do it better. We all make mistakes. As women, we make mistakes. And this whole marriage thing, we're all trying to figure it out. The man doesn't show up with a manual, and most of us as women, we don't show up with a manual or knowing how to do it perfectly. So we have to allow one another to grow into this relationship. We have to allow one another the opportunity to fail, to make mistakes, to get up, to try it again. But if we can stay in a place of knowing that maybe for a little while I won't be happy, and maybe that my happiness won't be consistent all the time, and perhaps there are going to be more days that I'm frustrated than not. But if you learn along the way, so instead of being frustrated about finances for me, 1997 to 2015, if my struggles keep showing up in my finances, then we got to go outside of ourselves and get help in the finance area. If we're struggling over and over again and the arguments are always about how to raise the children, then we have to be willing to go outside of ourselves. Maybe these two people together can't solve it. Maybe we need a third person to help us. How do we manage our children so that this doesn't tear us apart, ruin our relationships? It's okay to be frustrated, but it's absolutely okay to get help in those areas. Marriage is not easy. Any relationship where you're bringing two people together is never going to be easy. But there are strategies and ways, and there are people who've done this longer than you have. There's some really cool people out there who've studied this. I can't say that I've studied marriage, but I've read a lot about it, and I listened to a lot of ministries about it. Simply because not to be the expert in the room, but to be the expert in my own marriage. Like I did not sign up to be miserably married for 15, 20, 30 years. I signed up for happily married. And I am crazy enough to believe that if God created marriage or put me in the situation, that is for my greater good. And so I'm moving, always trying to get to that level of the better situation. And I'm okay with submitting to some of the bad thoughts that maybe I brought into the marriage, getting rid of some of the negative attitudes and getting rid of some of the false beliefs that I walked into the marriage. If it doesn't serve me, then I'm willing to let it go. At the very least, I'm willing to challenge it. So I wanted you guys to hold on to the idea that marriage is not about your happiness. The greatest purpose, I believe, is marriage is about your wholeness. Filling those holes that have been created in your heart through life to help you get back to your wholeness, the wholeness of joy, peace, love, patience. Everything that's happening in your marriage is working you back to that place. It's trying to heal those wounds that need healing. Many of us have scars from our childhood. Marriage will constantly bring up those scars, because God is saying, pay attention. I want to heal you. Stop running away. Stop wanting to end the relationship just because you're uncomfortable. Let's do the work and let's get the healing. And let's start realizing and viewing our marriage for something greater and a higher purpose than our happiness. So I hope this video helps. Send in, argue with me. Tell me why you don't agree. And if there's other topics you want to hear about, feel free to send me an email or shoot me an inbox on my Facebook. Thank you guys for sharing this time. I'm here because I want to see marriages succeed, and I thank you for taking the time to do all you can to have healthy and promising relationships. Bye-bye.